Before we begin, just a brief note for those who follow this channel closely. Subscribers to the Echoes of Valor email list receive carefully researched ebooks, detailed videos showing real woodworking projects built step by step, and timber-related material that, well, isn't published publicly. The focus is practical knowledge, historical context, and documented observation. Nothing promotional, just the work preserved and shared. Now let's get to the subject at hand. Wood rarely fails suddenly, but it always leaves warnings long before it does. One of the quiet misconceptions about timber construction is that failure is caused by bad wood or poor craftsmanship in a general sense. In reality, many historic failures happen because good wood was paired incorrectly. Old carpenters understood that timber is not a uniform material. Two beams cut from the same tree can age very differently once placed under load, exposed to weather, or restrained by joinery. The rule they followed was not written in textbooks, and it was rarely named outright, but it governed how beams were matched, oriented, and allowed to move together. This was the timber pairing rule, and ignoring it is one of the most common reasons historic wooden structures failed early, while others survived centuries. The rule was simple in principle, and demanding in practice. Wood that is forced to work together must age together. Density, grain direction, growth rate, moisture history, and exposure all mattered. Pairing timbers without regard for these traits introduced internal conflict into a structure. Stress that accumulated quietly until joints opened, beams twisted, or loads shifted. Old carpenters judged timber by how it had lived, not just how it looked. Before standardized lumber, carpenters learned to read trees the way herders read animals. Fast-grown timber from open land behaved differently from slow-grown forest timber. Heartwood and sapwood aged at different rates. Timber cut in winter moved differently from timber cut in summer. These differences were not theoretical. They showed up in roofs that sagged unevenly, doors that racked, and pegs that loosened after only a few seasons. When two beams were meant to act as a pair, tie beams, rafters, joists, rails, they were selected to behave similarly over time. This often meant cutting them from the same tree or from trees that grew under nearly identical conditions. It also meant matching grain orientation so that seasonal movement occurred in the same direction. Old carpenters did not eliminate wood movement, they synchronized it. This practice explains why surviving historic frames often show remarkable consistency in deformation. The structure may have settled, but it settled together. Failure was delayed because internal stresses were distributed rather than concentrated. Pairing was about long-term movement, not short-term strength. Modern discussions of timber often fixate on load ratings and immediate strength. Historic builders cared more about creep, shrinkage, and torsion over decades. A strong beam paired with a weaker but more stable one could cause more damage than two modest beams that moved alike. Wood shrinks across the grain as it dries, but not along it. Growth ring curvature determines how much and in which direction that shrinkage occurs. When two timbers with opposing ring orientation are locked together, one tries to cup upward while the other cups downward. The joint resists this motion, storing energy in the structure. Over time, something gives. The failure may appear sudden, but it is the result of years of restrained movement. The timber pairing rule avoided this by aligning growth rings and selecting beams with similar ring width and curvature. Old carpenters knew that restraint was more dangerous than weakness. Environmental exposure was treated as a matching condition, not an afterthought. Another overlooked aspect of pairing was exposure. A beam placed on a north wall aged differently than one on a south wall. Moisture cycling, ultraviolet exposure, and temperature swings altered density and stiffness over time. Carpenters accounted for this by pairing timbers that would experience similar environments. In long halls and barns, opposing rafters were often cut and installed as mirrored pairs. In bridges and waterfront structures, timbers exposed to splash zones were matched carefully, while those kept dry were treated as a separate class altogether. This prevented uneven decay rates that could pull joints out of alignment. Failure often occurred when a repaired section ignored this rule. Introducing a new kiln-dried beam next to centuries-old air-dried timber created imbalance. The new beam moved aggressively, while the old one had already done most of its shrinking. The joint absorbed the difference. Joinery was designed to tolerate paired movement, not suppress it. Mortise and tenon joints were proportioned to allow slight compression and wear without loosening. Wooden pegs were placed where they would flex rather than shear. The joint was not a clamp, it was a negotiated agreement between two living materials. When paired timbers moved together, joints aged gracefully. When they did not, joints became the site of failure. Peg holes elongated, shoulders opened, and loads shifted unpredictably. This is why historic repairs that replace only one side of a joint often fail prematurely. The problem is not poor workmanship, it is mismatched behavior over time. Decay followed patterns that carpenters learned to anticipate. It really wasn't random to experienced builders. Decay followed moisture, stagnation, and, well, imbalance. When paired timbers behaved differently, gaps would open that trapped water. Airflow changed in subtle ways. Sometimes one beam stayed damp longer than the other. Decay began where movement created opportunity. Old carpenters reduced this risk by pairing timbers that dried and absorbed moisture at similar rates. This didn't prevent decay entirely, but it slowed it enough that structures outlived their expected service lives. In survival contexts, this principle mattered even more. Temporary shelters built with mismatched poles often failed within a single season, while carefully paired frames endured years with minimal maintenance. Many historic collapses were actually slow failures misread as sudden events. Records of barn collapses, roof failures, and bridge losses often describe sudden events triggered by storms or heavy loads. But, the physical evidence tells a much quieter story. Crushed fibers, polished joint faces, and long-term deformation all indicate progressive failure caused by incompatible timber behavior. When paired timbers fight each other, stress accumulates invisibly. External events merely reveal the weakness. Old carpenters understood this and tried to eliminate internal conflict wherever possible. The timber pairing rule was a preventive practice, not a repair strategy. Modern materials did not eliminate the rule, they simply made it easier to ignore. Standardized lumber and engineered products mask variability, but they do not remove it. Even today, mixing species, moisture contents, or growth characteristics within a single structural system introduces long-term risk. Historic builders worked without calculators, but they had generations of observation. Their rules emerged from failure, not theory. The timber pairing rule survived because it worked. Understanding this rule helps explain why some wooden structures endure while others fail, even with better tools and materials. It also reminds us that wood is not passive. It responds continuously to its environment. Timber knowledge was once about humility, not control. Old carpenters did not believe they could force wood to behave, they believed they had to listen to it. Pairing timber was an act of respect for the material's limits. It acknowledged that strength without compatibility was, frankly, a liability. This mindset is easy to lose in modern practice, but it remains relevant wherever wood is used for shelter, storage, or survival. The material has not changed, only our patience has. Understanding timber behavior is still a form of preparedness, whether you're restoring a historic structure, building with limited resources, or planning for long-term durability. The lessons embedded in the timber pairing rules still matter. Wood remembers how it grew, how it was cut, and how it is constrained. Pairing timbers wisely reduces conflict, slows decay, and preserves integrity. That knowledge was earned slowly, passed quietly, and often lost when speed replaced observation. Recovering it is not nostalgia, it's practical understanding. If this kind of material-focused history matters to you, consider joining the Echoes of Valor email list. That's where the longer research, detailed builds, and timber studies live, shared carefully and meant to last.